Morning, class. Please open your books to chapter 9, Summa de Arithmetica. Today we're going to talk about my new invention, double entry bookkeeping. Should have got a bigger laugh. All right. All right, so as you can tell, as we're talking about today, I am dressed up as the father of accounting, Luca Pacioli. So let's just go ahead and make a comparison. All right. How effective is the costume? What do you think? Good? All right. Nobody's wearing a better costume than mine, so that's all that I really care about. So at least a better costume of Luca Pacioli. I'm the only one there. So yeah, Luca Pacioli, Franciscan friar, born in 1447, passed away in 1517, but he is credited with actually creating modern double entry bookkeeping. It's in this his book. It's just kind of simply titled Summa de Arithmetica. It's actually a much longer title than that, but I'm not going to talk to that because it's a lot to say, a lot of words, and I struggle with words as it goes. So yeah, hopefully, this is the greatest gift that you get this semester is seeing me dressed up as the father of accounting, because I'm not doing it again. This costume is really hot. Okay, it's really warm, and I'm in a room full of computers. So yeah. What are we talking about today? We're talking about Alteryx. So today's Alteryx assignment, as you well know, Luca Pacioli was a one of the early adopters of Alteryx back in 1447, and I'm just getting no reaction from you guys whatsoever. This is brutal. You know, I did a stand-up routine a few years ago. I got better reactions that time, you know, and I was expecting it to not go over. It's like everybody's really tired. Did you do AYCD last night? Is that what the explanation is? I see a lot of people with downcast eyes. Okay. All right. Now that all can make sense. All right. Never try to make jokes on a Friday morning. Never try to make jokes on a Friday morning. All right, so we're going to be talking about Alteryx today. So a little bit of background on this Alteryx assignment. First two assignments I created, I wanted them to be an introduction. I was looking for something to kind of fill the gap between our final Alteryx assignment, which is our final tool or technology analysis assignment, which will be next week. And so I found this one, and it's a good assignment. It's not the best assignment I've ever encountered, but it does have some exploration of tools and things that we did not actually go into a lot of depth on our previous assignment. So this is from the EY data set, and it was a research case that I found out. So I deliberately set this one up to be a little bit more exploratory, hence the term tool exploration analysis, Alteryx, tool explanation in Alteryx. And so you're going to be importing some files, and there's actually quite a few files that you need to import for purposes of this. But basically, you'll do some routines, some tasks with tools that you're familiar with, such as the select tool, and then some other tools that you're not as familiar with, such as the data entry or the text entry tool. And should hopefully expand your horizons a little bit and reinforce some of the things that you've already learned. Overall, I think the performance on Alteryx assignments, so what I've seen so far, has been pretty good. I think everybody got to it. It has got a little bit of a learning curve, but most people that I found, whenever they start working with the tool, then it becomes a little bit easier to work with once you get a little bit of exposure and experience to it. So this is going to reinforce that so that you can kind of do the open-ended assignment that's going to be in for place from next week. So basically, all I'm going to do is I'm going to do an introduction, and then I'm going to set you free to do this. Now, part of my introduction is I wanted to talk about something that might be beneficial. We have not talked about something that Alteryx can perform, a task that's can be performed. You will notice that, let me see if I can pull this up. I believe I gave an example workflow as part of the deliverables for this assignment. So let's see. Yeah, so I've got an example workflow, which you can see what the files that I created. It doesn't necessarily need to look exactly like this, but you can see what the workflow looks like. But you will notice that they're kind of all sectioned in boxes here. And that's something we have not talked about, and I want to go into a little bit of detail because you might find this relevant. So these boxes are called containers, and they are just kind of what they sound like. They separate out different pieces of analysis. So what you will find is every time that you create a new tool, every single existing tool in the workflow will automatically update, which can be very convenient if you've got a small amount of data. The problem is, what if you've got a large data set? Like this data set for part 2 is actually pretty substantial. It will take you a little while to summarize the data. So what if you want to start working on part 3, but you don't want part 2 to update every single time you import a new tool? The answer is that you're going to put it into a container, and it's not a particularly difficult process to do. So there's a few things I want to know about. So first of all, these segregate these out so that we can kind of see what the different parts are. So these are the three parts of the assignment, and I put all my workflow items into each container. Now, if I want to update and want to have everything update, I just click on that little button over here. So you can kind of see there's a little radio button here that if it's off, then data will not update when I add things to the workflow. If it's on, it will, and it will update as it is. But let me show you how to create a container. It's actually pretty easy. So I want to put to these two tools in their own separate container. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these items. You could do this by just clicking on each of the individual icons if you want. So click on it and then hold down Control and click on another one. Or you could just drag and copy or drag and select all of them like that. So once you've selected all the icons that go into a container, you're going to right click on one of them and it's going to say New Container. And that's all there really is to it. You can name your container whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and put this one back as part 1 because these are my tools for part 1. And like I said, when you can create the container, now anytime that you have this on, it will update whenever you add a new tool. So if I wanted to expand upon this and do additional analysis, I could add different tools to the container. If I shut this off, then basically it doesn't exist for the purposes of updating. The data still exists. It's still in the workflow, but you don't have it update. Now, again, I would say that the reason for this partially is to separate out to show what tools are for what parts of the assignment, which I think will be beneficial. But the big part of this is that when you finish one part of the project, when you finish part 1, you can shut that off and start working on part 2, and then you can shut part 2 off and part 3. So work on part 3. Part 1 is not a very big data set. It's probably not a big deal, but I will tell you that you will run into a wall if you try to continue keeping part 2 open, simply because it is a large data set. And the processing, like I said, occurs anytime you add a new tool. So you just want, the reason we want to have this container is to shut those processes off. So kind of a neat little addition. There's little tips and tricks there. I want to make a note for this particular assignment. Going back on the workflow, so you kind of see the workflow that I have here in this example workflow. I would strongly recommend that you add detailed annotations to your icons here. I didn't count off for them when I was looking through the assignment as we were doing introductions. That being said, at this point, I expect you to know exactly what it is you're doing, so you do need to provide annotations. The good news is the annotations for the workflow are mostly provided for you. So I provided them in my workflow, but you do need to get in the habit of doing that because, like I said, this is a best practice. And if you leave this university not using annotations consistently, and then you go and do work for your client or your employer, and they say, do you know how to use Alteryx? I said, yes. And then you hand them a workflow without any annotations on that. They're gonna email me and send me a nasty letter says, why didn't you see some annotations? So I will count off if there's not proper annotations on the workflows for this particular assignment. I know it's additional extra time, and I know that your time is valuable because you're graduate students, but I do think it's a valuable activity to engage in. And so that's going to be something we need to do moving forward is for everything that you do in Alteryx, you're going to have to provide proper annotation. Like I said, didn't worry too much about it for the first assignment. I will be considering that moving forward. So if you miss annotation, you will get a deduction in points for the assignment. All right, with that, I'm going to let you all at it. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. And if there's something we need to update on, if there's any questions that I think need to be added to the recording, then we'll have that there. But this is just going to be a short video. I know we got a few minutes left, but there's a few questions that have come up that I wanted to address so that everybody's on there. I think most everybody has kind of either got that or got the advice. So I kind of did you a disservice and I said standardizing the case in part F or F for part 2. Basically, all that means is that the fields themselves will not have consistency in the way that capital letters and lowercase letters are used. So just basically you want to, when I say standardize the case, you want to use the same case values for all letters that are going to be used in the two sets of fields. So basically for your data cleansing, you want to either use uppercase or lowercase. I recommend uppercase because it's a little bit cleaner, but whichever one you use is fine. Also, the final task actually talks about summarizing by OFAC record ID, create date and status. So summarizing, you have a lot of different options. You just need to do a group by on that one. There's no reason to do a count or anything. We just want to have the record or whatever the record values are summarized. And then finally, something came up. This was something I did not address in the previous iterations, but I think it's probably a relevant discussion. So When you look at the field values for some of these files, actually for all these files, the imports, I'm gonna have to make this a little bit smaller so I can shift over to the right. You will notice that there is not an item here. There's not an item here at the end that kind of that stops at count. But if you go to the manipulation of the select tool, I probably should have started with that. My apologies. Oops, come on. You can do it. All right. So you will notice that there's a field listed at the end called unknown. And that's not an actual field that's in your data. My best explanation for that field is this is kind of a proprietary field used by Alteryx for its own statistics and tracking. If you delete it, it will just recreate it. This is part of personal experience I found on it. So I would just not mess with those fields. If you did delete it, it's not a big deal. Okay. If you didn't delete it, don't worry about it. It's not going to appear in your data or your analysis. It's just kind of something that gets tracked in there. I think it's a little bit confusing to include that. There may be some advanced protocols where you need to actually know what's in that field. We're not going to go anything into depth on that. So that's basically what that field represents. All right, one last item that I want to talk about before we call it good. For the final part, on one of the files that you're supposed to import, there was an issue with whether or not the header was importing properly. And so basically, you may or may not run into this problem. And if you don't, you can count your blessings. But for some reason, Alteryx, when it's trying to import the file directly, is trying to include these fields right here, these items as records and not as headers, even if you specify headers. Yes.
I just re-imported it and it did the same thing.
Okay. So
yeah, like I said infer header and or first row, and they still like don't.
Okay. So if you're running into that problem, I'm going to take a look at it and see if I can figure out what's going on, and I'll send out an email to the class. But I do know that there's a way to do it because I've done it. I just don't remember exactly how I fixed the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know about that. But hopefully, if you're at that point right now, you're pretty close to finish, so it's not going to hold you up too much. All right, back on Monday. Have a good weekend. Be careful that AYCD.
It's